All right, have not fans, you know the drill. If you're new to the channel, or if you've been here several times, watched a few videos and haven't done so already, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button as well as the bell notification icon. I'm really going to bring this up a lot more than usual due to the fact that the finale is right around the corner. So I wanted to let everybody know, even when the show goes on hiatus, I'm still going to be doing reviews on If Loving You Is Wrong, The Pains, and I'm still behind, but I will be doing Love Is. But also keep in mind that depending on the cliffhanger of whatever finale I believe is going to be coming on the 24th or 31st, I don't know for sure yet. Just know that I'll still be doing theory videos, discussion videos, reviewing this season as a whole, talking about some of my favorite moments. The most intense or most shocking moments, the deaths and everything like that. So just because the show is going to go on break after this month, don't expect the channel to do the same due to the fact that I'm a full-time YouTuber, meaning content will still be coming. Now, with that out of the way, we are going to talk about that cliffhanger, and you know what I'm talking about. Now, it's been less than 24 hours, because I'm recording this around 7:30 on a Wednesday. And yes, the shock is still there, but I'm feeling a lot better compared to last night. Now, the main question at large is, did Candace perform an act of self-defense, or was it just murder? Now, looking online, because everybody knows how reliable Wikipedia is, I actually just Googled self-defense, just for the basic concept. Now, the first thing that pops up, self-defense, the defense of one's person or interest, especially through the use of physical force, such as shoving someone through a window, which is permitted in certain cases as an answer to a charge of violent crime, aka, for example, he claimed self-defense in the attempted murder charge. Now, going to the basics of Wikipedia, the first sentence says, and I like this one better, self-defense is a countermeasure that involves defending the health and well-being of oneself from harm. Basically meaning that if somebody steps to you and starts assaulting you physically, then self-defense is actually going to be used in order to defend yourself. The use of the right of self-defense as a legal justification for the use of force in times of danger is available in many jurisdictions, but the interpretation varies widely. Now, we're going to break it down here. Like, I didn't go to law school. Well, technically I did for 3 days, but that was, Liberty University School of Law. Amazing, by the way. They actually had this awesome program where any student or anyone who wants to visit, you can actually be a student for 3 days, like sit in on classes, just witness how things are done. I remember back in like 2012, I got a chance to go on a tour of the School of Law. It was one of those days where I didn't have classes. It was pretty slow around campus. So the woman there who gave the tour, she was, there by herself. There was nobody coming in. So me being me, I signed up for it just to go. It was amazing. I got this replica of the Supreme Courtroom, which is freaking amazing. But either way, I went to law school for a few days. I didn't pursue law as a degree. So I just wanted to let you know that if there are people watching who are more familiar with legal procedures and protocols and all that good stuff, if I happen to make a mistake, just know that, I'm not an expert. I did some light research, as you can tell by my definitions from Wikipedia. But to be honest here, I wanted to just break it down as simple as I can, because I wanted to just have an open discussion with you all, giving my thoughts. Maybe just breaking it down from the definition of self-defense, talking about what we saw at the end of Moles, and then maybe together as a collective, we can maybe come up with an answer as to whether or not Candace Young committed murder, or was it an act of self-defense? So with that being said, let's just take the gloves off and talk about what happened in Moles. Now, basically, we know that Candace was pretty much, just sneaking around the Artesian Hotel, not trying to run into Rocky, not trying to be seen by Jim, and especially Oscar. She pretty much told RK to watch her 9 as she was walking across the lobby area while he was in the bar area, just to make sure there was nobody watching her. And RK volunteered to, pretty much walk her up to her room. I'm pretty sure we know why he wanted to do that, not just to try to go on her good side, but also to see if he can get a little bit lucky. And to be honest, And that dress and those heels and the way she was looking, I can't blame RK for trying. But when it comes down to it, she actually did something to avoid Oscar. It's kind of ironic, it's almost like a Greek tragedy. The one thing you do in order to avoid a certain fate is exactly what leads you to that fate. I mean, if she would have took the stairs like she's been doing for the past several episodes, I mean, RK even called her out on it. It's the fact like, well, I noticed the fact you're wearing that hat, you taking the back staircase instead of going through the main area or taking the elevator. You're trying to not be seen. Very perceptive. Now, if she would have done that, it's less likely that she would have ran into Oscar. I mean, to be honest, I'm pretty sure she wouldn't run into Oscar because remember, he was taking the elevator and, the stairs, time difference on speed, all that good stuff. But either way you look at it, it seems to me that this was destined to happen. I mean, you might call it fate. I call it plot because Tyler Perry wrote it that way. But let's just break down what happened. So it's pretty simple concept. Candace is going up. Oscar hit the button probably to go up as well. Honestly, I don't even know what floor he was on. So based off the fact that he knocked Candace out and then shut the elevator, then got off the elevator, I'm guessing they weren't on the same floor. I think he had to go up a couple of flights. I don't know. But basically, it was attack on sight. A couple of shots to the chest, then slammed her on one side of the elevator to kind of like daze her. But then the other time hit her against the wall so hard she literally fell to the ground. She had to be lifted up and was stumbling back to the hotel room almost as if she was drunk. Hence why Oscar was like, too many shots. You know how it is, am I right? Opens the door, forces her in the room, and then starts harassing her verbally, like, where's the money? I'm not playing. And after taking the purse away and then looking through it and not finding anything, he actually proceeds to slap her, hit her around some more. Candace like, stop, Oscar, please stop it. And then in the midst of frustration, it looks like Oscar is about to calm down, but then Candace, I guess you could say, takes advantage of the opportunity to physically shove Oscar through the window. And that's where we left off. I mean, yes, in the next episode, she's looking down at what she done in shock. And obviously when she's talking RK, she literally can't believe what she did. Now, the question is, did Candace Young commit an act of murder or was it self-defense? This is interesting. Tyler Perry has done a great job these past few episodes because he's leaving us off with these cliffhangers that has people talking because there's more than one way to interpret what happened. Just like, yeah, David committed an act of domestic violence, but was it something that Veronica had coming to her? Was he pushed to the point where he had no choice but to physically counteract what she was doing? Like, he went over to the house for the wrong reason, which was tearing apart the condo, which is something Veronica didn't do. But that slap, and he even talked about it to Erica, it was because she kept pushing him, not just mentally, not just verbally, not just emotionally, but then physically, like pounding on him and, pushing him and whatnot. Even though she really isn't physically strong enough to hurt David, it was enough to send him over the edge. And there are people who have their breaking points. So yes, say what you want about David, but he's endured a lot of, for a lack of a better phrase, shit from Veronica. So to actually have him backhand her after all this time, I've seen more people saying, well, it's about time he did that. I'm surprised it took that long, as opposed to, oh no, he was wrong for that. Then, last week, not so much a cliffhanger, but the trailer for Moles, the big question was Candace Young being disgusting and just to the point, not even evil, but just straight up disgusting for calling a hit on her own mother just to get some documents signed from, bank transfer. And now it's the whole question of, okay, Candace, was it murder? Was it self-defense? And I'm not really trying to play, on either side of the fence to say, oh, well, Candace did what she had to do. That's not really what I'm trying to say here. I'm just saying that in terms of self-defense, she technically did perform an act of self-defense. I mean, to be honest, it depends on how you look at it. If you don't look at the fact that Candace overdosed Oscar, sabotaged his plan to get the money back from Wyatt, put Oscar's life on the line by taking the money, and even going back as far as when she physically assaulted Oscar back at the campaign office with that iron bar. Because remember, this was during a time where she was stalking Oscar in order to get back the $7.4 million. Well, or excuse me, what was left of that money that Oscar took to give to David to give back to Jim. Like, if Oscar would have physically fought back against Candace in that situation and, let's say, killed her, that is also technically an act of self-defense, because she was the one that attacked him with that iron pole first. And going even further back to the end of season 3, when Oscar's true colors were revealed and he, for some reason, decided to get off the plane going to New York to go back to Atlanta to talk with Candace face to face after she figured out that he took the money from her. He pretty much broke it down, and she had a knife behind her back ready to greet him, but was able to fight her off. So if Quincy didn't show up and throw Oscar to the side, punch him, and then he ran, it would have been an act of self-defense. So technically speaking, if you look at everything that's happened up to this point, Oscar attacking Candace on plain sight is, well, justified. But at the same time, when you look at it as an isolated incident, because, you know, up until the point of him being thrown out of her hotel room after he was woken up by RK, those two hadn't interacted at that point. Oscar was pretty much on the lookout because he was in a mixed bag of emotion. The fact that Jim was on his ass, the fact that he was running out of time, and the fact that Candace was the one that sabotaged the entire ordeal. Yeah, I can see why he did what he did. But at the same time, Candace really had no choice, because when you think about it, let's talk about all the times Candace's life has almost come to an end. Now, when you really think about it, and I don't know if I actually mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but I think I tweeted this out earlier today. It didn't hit me until this morning that this was the first time that Candace legitimately murdered someone herself. I'm talking, she wasn't assisted by anyone else. Like, let's break it down. Going to Warlock, even though Warlock was killed, it was not Candace that pulled the trigger. It was one of the Malones. Candace played a role in getting Warlock to come down to the restaurant. Mitch arranged it with his family, and that's how him and his gang got killed. Going back to Quincy, Candace was on the verge of being killed or choked out, which strangely took longer than expected, but I'm not getting into that today. But then Jeffrey came in, you know, tried to hit him upside the head with a vase, and then took the carving knife and did what he did. And even though Jeffrey wanted to call the police and say it was an act of self-defense, Candace broke it down that the number of stabbings would indicate that it was, you know, premeditated or something. I forgot her exact words, but like I said, I'm not a law student, nor do I remember every single line of dialogue of the show, believe it or not. But even when he regained consciousness briefly, Candace could have called 911 but didn't. So indirectly, her actions led to Quincy's official death, but she didn't kill him herself. Then going back to the Malones, you know, back in season 2, when that was the biggest event of the show up until that point, the question was whether or not Candace was killed after being shot in the head, but we found out the gun went off right near her ear and didn't shoot her directly. She was on her own. I mean, the only ally, if you will, was the fact that Jim told the Malones not to kill Candace, but to scare her. But unfortunately, she was on her own. Oh, even going far back as season 1, after Amanda tried to take her own life after the whole Professor Cannon rape thing, and Jim came over to live up to his word on Candace, saying that if you hurt my daughter, I'm going to kill you. And after getting the address from Jeffrey, he actually went over to the apartment, and the cliffhanger ending was Jim assaulting Candace to the point where he was choking her out. They broke the glass door to the shower and passed out there until he witnessed a pregnancy test, and that's when the fight stopped. So indirectly, Amanda saved Candace, or to be even to go any further, Professor Cannon raping Amanda saved Candace, because if he didn't do that, Amanda wouldn't have taken a pregnancy test, and the pregnancy test wouldn't have been in the bathroom for Jim to see. That would have stopped Candace from being killed. But then again, if Professor Cannon didn't rape Amanda, then she wouldn't have tried to take her own life, so she wouldn't have been in the hospital to begin with, meaning that Jim wouldn't have had a reason at that point to attack Candace. It's kind of weird when you look at it that way. But the point I'm trying to make here is going back through all of Candace's brushes with death. I may have missed one or two. I just wanted to talk about the main ones right there. Not even counting the one where Catherine hit her upside the head with the wine bottle or champagne, and pretty much had her interrogated by herself and Jim until Hannah came to save her own daughter. I feel like Candace was, for probably the first time, was truly alone. Like, there was nobody to back her up. There were no tricks, no golf clubs. It was literally her and Oscar. The fact that she was begging for him to stop. I mean, to be honest, I felt a little bad, just slightly, because she sounded so pitiful, but not to the point where I felt truly sympathetic for her. I feel like I can't say that. I don't know. It's hard for me to say that she had no other choice but to do what she did because she saw an opportunity and went for it. Because, to be honest, Oscar wouldn't stop. She did beg and plead, and in a moment of frustration, he stopped. Perhaps he was calming himself down, but we'll never know because he got pushed out of the window before we saw what his next action would have been if he had turned around. So, again, I'm not saying I sympathize with Candace, but I'm just saying that in that moment, I can almost understand why she did what she did, because literally she was being physically assaulted. I'm not erasing her past, because earlier I mentioned all the times that her and Oscar got into it before, and she's always been the one to initiate it. But in this moment, from her perspective, it was a moment of survival, and that was the only opportunity she had. Like, she couldn't run for the door. Oscar would have caught her. She didn't have any golf clubs. She didn't have anybody she can call that would instantly come up to save her. She was on her own. RK would have been her only means of protection, but she turned it down, thinking that the elevator would have been the best way to avoid Oscar. So Candace did, I guess she did what she had to do, but I guess what's going to happen next is really going to determine how I feel about her character. Maybe this will create some sort of redemption arc. I don't know, but we'll just have to see. And what I mean by like character arc or redemption is it's just the growth in Candace's character. To be honest, even though most people find Hannah and her dialogue annoying, even Candace pointed this out at the end of the episode. Smitten, you know, the fact that it's like a broken record. What are you, like an R&B song, old Negro spiritual? To be honest, yes, but I didn't mind Hannah in that instance because she was telling the truth about how everything they do goes back around. You're not going to get no good can come from the lifestyle you're living. And yeah, it is repetitive, but to be honest, so is Candace's storyline. It's the same thing, trying to con people. It gets taken away. She tries to get revenge, ends up nearly dying, ends up with a bigger pot from another blackmail scheme, and then the cycle repeats itself over and over again. But now is a question of what is Candace going to do? See, the problem I had with Moles, and it isn't the problem with the episode itself, is the synopsis saying that Candace goes back to her old schemes to get quick cash in order to skip town. That should have been the synopsis for next week's episode, because next week, that's when I think she's going to try to, round up some money and just skip town in order to escape, the fate of murder. Well, the crime of murder. The thing about it is, I wish she wouldn't do that, because this should definitely be a way of giving Candace some character growth, because just like Catherine's going to force Wyatt to get arrested and face the consequences of his crime, I feel like the same thing should be said for Candace when it comes to Oscar. Do what she didn't do when it came to Quincy Jr. Jeffrey wanted to call the police. Quincy Maxwell. Jeffrey wanted to call the police, but Candace took his phone and put it in the garbage disposal. But in this situation, and tried to cover it up. Hell, even Benny got involved by burying the body. But this time, Oscar is a smear on the pavement, and we know that Landon and his team was instructed by Charles to not only sabotage every scheme that Candace has, but to make sure that anything she does is cleaned up. That way, if she does go to the inauguration, there's nobody going to be batting an eye or whispering or causing gossip, which is ironic because Charles wants to do that for Candace, yet his own team is gossiping about him and Landon. That's very interesting to think about. But I don't think Candace can run from this. She's going to try to, but I feel like there are way too many obstacles. Like, she's going to try to split town. But remember, Rocky is going to send somebody after her. RK warned Candace, but given the situation and the fact that she's probably not going to be thinking straight, it goes back to what Warlock told Jim back when they were in jail together about, yeah, people are stupid when they're desperate. I feel like Candace is going to screw up. Like, that's probably what's going to happen, either to the fact where Charles is going to get her, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but I feel like she's going to be caught up in one of her old schemes, like somebody's going to be coming back for revenge. I mean, Jim's going to be after her potentially. I know he's going to be confronting Benny about the inheritance, but even if he does get the money back, I don't think that means he's not going to stop messing with Candace. We know Rocky's going to try to go after her. Of course, Charles wants her. And maybe Landon might take the opportunity to pin Candace down for the murder of Oscar, so he can't clean that up. It will be a thing that even he and his team can't fix. So Candace is in jail, meaning that Charles won't be able to have her as first lady, meaning that Charles is something that Landon would be closer to getting. Kind of like how Justin wanted Wyatt to hang himself, that way he's out of the way so he can have Jeffrey all to himself. Same thing with Landon. Wow, it's interesting how these storylines are kind of the same, which is something that could have been said from season 1 onward, but it's one of these things where you really talk about it out loud, it starts to fit together. Now, maybe Charles will think that Landon did this on purpose and then truly believe the rumors that his assistant and whatnot was telling him that, yeah, he is gay. And even though Charles doesn't care if he is, he's like, well, he's not interested in me. Kind of like saying that, yo, I'm pretty sure I would know if he was into me like that, and he's not. So if Landon does sabotage Candace to fall for the murder of Oscar, then Charles might actually be setting off some light bulbs in his head about, yeah, he probably did this on purpose. Because if you remember in an earlier episode, after, Landon once again expressed his disagreement on having Candace as first lady, Charles like, clean her up, I don't care. And he left the hotel room, and right outside the hallway, he called the police and gave the location of Candace Young. Because remember, this was during the time where the cops were looking for her for the murder of Quincy Maxwell. Then Charles found out and chewed out Landon, and that was that. From then on, Landon pretty much held his peace. But who's to say he won't do this again in order to bring her down? Just like Maggie Day tried to sabotage Veronica by putting the picture of her and Benny in the paper and making up that story about Jim and Veronica conspiring together in order to get David out of jail while letting her rot inside of jail. I think Landon will take advantage of this opportunity. That's what I think. So looking back on this situation as a whole, what is Candace going to do? Is she going to stand in her heels and accept what she did? Or is she going to try to run away? Based off the episode synopsis, it seems like she is going to try to run away. That's just going to make things worse. There are just so many repercussions of Oscar's death that's going to have its own separate video. Yeah, I want to talk about how the death of Oscar may affect the storyline in a separate video, because this video, I just wanted to break down the case of, was Candace acting in an act of self-defense? Is what she did justified? And like I said before, if you look back at all the other times, like Warlock, Quincy, Jim back in season 1, there was something that assisted Candace to get out of that situation alive. But in this case, we'll never know if Oscar was about to calm down and see if he could, work out with Candace to get the money back. We don't know. We just know that he attacked Candace on sight and she was pleading for him to stop, and that led to her doing what she did. So I'm going to leave it to you all. Do you feel like Candace Young committed an act of murder, or was it an act of self-defense? What do you think Tyler Perry is going to do with this storyline? I would really love for Candace to stand there and take it and fight the good fight, because she was a law student. She might be able to look at this and use her excuse me, oh man, throat just went dry for a second. And use her lawyer know how to get out of the situation. But it's hard to tell what's going to happen. I mean, many people have been saying, wait, Jeremy, RK likes Candace. Maybe he'll go to the security camera, like the control room in the hotel, delete the footage of... Wait, actually, there's no cameras in the room. So maybe, what about the elevator fight? Remember, Oscar attacked Candace in the elevator, so that might be deleted, or that might be used against Oscar just to say it was an act of self-defense. Not to mention those two were walking in the hallway, plus that couple witnessed what was going on. You know, the fact that Oscar was trying to play it off as Candace was drunk. I don't know. It's hard to tell. There are just so many things that may or may not happen, but I pretty much talked about everything I had to talk about with this situation in regards to Candace's perspective. Next video, I don't know if it would be my very next video, but I'll definitely be doing a video about Oscar, how his death may or may not affect the series as a whole. Let me know your thoughts on Candace Young committing murder herself for the first time. What is going to happen? Will she get off the case? Will she stand there and face it? Will Landon use this against her to get closer to Charles? Who knows? I guess another big question that I'll talk about in the other video is, remember, there was potentially some powerful people who hired Oscar to get Charles to lose the election. So now that he's dead, doesn't that mean there's a slight power vacuum? So maybe this does support the fact that Charles might get assassinated by the Malones, because maybe the Malones were the people that were paying Oscar. But I already did a video on that, and I'll put a link at the end of this video on the screen. So yeah, this was a very good discussion. I hope the comment section blows up on this. As always, subscribe to the channel, comment your thoughts, give this video a thumbs up, share this video around, because I really want to get some people thinking on this. Let me know, was it an act of self-defense or was it just cold-blooded murder?